Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 6 of the Trumpeter 1/35 scale Tiger 1 late version. So as a quick recap, in the last video I did parts 5 and 6, which was the assembly of the tailplate of the hull, installation of that, and then the other small parts that went on afterwards, as well as the Zimmerit on this lower slope part of the hull. So all that's done, so we're ready to move on to step 7. Okay, before I go too much further, I want to talk a little bit about step 7. So on step 7, you have the track installation wire rope. That will not be put on this kit because the reference photos I have for Tiger A12 does not show the rope in place. So the reason being is it's in transport mode, which means I'm also going to have to, as you see here, modify the mud guards in a folded up position. Like apparently that was to clear railway tunnels and other obstacles, and it was a requirement by the railroad system. So as you can see, they've been done on here, but I'm not going to really talk about that and demonstrate it till I do the front of the vehicle, where I'm going to have to do the same thing on these, and I'll give a demonstration of it then. For now, I am going to start on step 8, which is the top part of the hull. All right, the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that I'm going to actually install the whole upper plate before I put the all the fittings and parts and stuff in place. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to clamp some stuff so it's all nice and tight, and I don't want to have to deal with extra parts getting in the way. So that's what I'm going to start working on first. First, I want to make sure that I've got these parts back here. Well, not just back here, but all the way around this upper hull part. Make sure that the sprue gate attachment points are smooth. So I don't want those to be visible once I start doing weathering. So that looks pretty good there. And then I'll fit it into place here, and this is what I like. See that? Snap. That's a nice, snug, tight fit. Now for the glue, I think what I'm going to do is that looks good. I'm going to glue this back strip first, then I'll work my way down. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll do it all at the same time. Yeah, I think I'll do it all at the same time. And for that, I'm going to use this glue. But I'm going to be careful not to let it squeeze out. And then I may go back with the extra thin to make sure there's no gaps or anything like that. So I'm just gonna put some on the edges like that, and then put it all in place, being careful not to get any fingerprints or anything anywhere. And then just work it down like that. And then get my clamps. Clamp it together nice and tight. Ouch. That. Get another big clamp. Then put some cement down here like that. And like that. Whoops. Sorry about my noggin getting in the way, folks. And then carefully clamp that, and then let that dry really good. And I'll be ready to start putting some other stuff on here. While all of this monstrosity is drying, I'm going to go ahead and work on this center engine deck cover. I need parts A27, C23, H5, blah, blah, blah. So let's get A27 first. Start cutting all these things off and start getting them cleaned up so I can put it together. With all of the parts sanded, trimmed and sanded and cut off, I can glue them in place. And be careful cleaning this part up here that I'm gluing on, which is C3, because it looks like it's supposed to have, it's supposed to look like a plate sitting down on top of these other parts, and if you sand too much on the side, it'll make it smooth. For this part, this dome, I'm going to actually use this cement because I think it hovers off of the deck just ever so slightly. So if I tried to put the cement like extra thin or something around the bottom, it might not glue. It might be flush, but better safe than sorry, as they say. And then these two parts here, these very tiny little parts, fit in these square, well, rectangular shaped holes, and they sit at an angle. And they face out like this. I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming there's some kind of retractable lifting hooks. Not really retractable, but the middle part of the hook is folded down between two ears, so you flip it up, something like that. I'm just guessing. I could be wrong. I was wrong one other time. So that goes there. I'm just using that to tack it in place, and then I'll put some more to make sure it's nice and solid. I just want to get it lined up. So we'll do that one. And that one. Like that. So let's go ahead and make sure that's anchored on there good, and then put these. They go here. So I'm going to do the same thing. Put a little bit of cement in the holes like that. Make sure those are pressed down really good, and then carefully really smash them in there so they look more welded than just sitting on top. Like that. Same thing on this other side. Getting in the way of showing you what I'm doing. Not that you can't figure it out on your own. Like that. I'm going to do the same thing. Carefully push it down like that. With a little tiny bit more cement to make sure it melts into the surface really well. Like that. So that finishes that part there. So there's not really any other sub-assemblies I need to do. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut off the various tools, put those in place. Get those ready. Here's a little detail that I like to do when I can. And that's on something like this. These are the cleaning rods, and these ends down here are threaded, and they thread together, which means there should be a hole in this end here. However, there's not. So using my X-Acto knife, I make a little pilot hole like that. Then I choose an appropriate size bit, in this case one that's pretty close to this part here. Zoom in a little bit. This part here, and then hollow it out. I don't have to do a whole lot because it just needs to give the appearance of being an internally threaded area. And then just touch it a little bit and make sure your hole's centered up, because if it's not, you can manipulate the drill bit to get it going more concentric, your hole with the actual rod itself. And then just take it real easy. And there you go. So when you paint it, just, you know, put a little bit of black paint in there and then paint the rest of it, and you're good to go. So I'll continue cleaning these tools, and I'll be ready to glue them onto the top of the hull. Now it's time to start gluing some of this stuff on here. So let's turn this around. This goes here like thusly. And it's a nice tight fit. So what I'm going to do is using this cement here, because I don't want any of the seam lines around the edge, since it's a removable panel, removable plate. I don't want any of that to get filled up with cement or molten plastic. So I'm just going to do this. Like, probably overkill, doesn't mean that much, but I sometimes do that. Just like that. That is for the rear. Okay, so now we need to do this one here, which goes here. Now all these parts, you could do these separately, paint them separately and then install them. But you know, I personally like to paint them. I used to paint them off the vehicle and then glue them on, but I like gluing them on and then painting them, because for one thing, when you're painting the colors of the vehicle, you're also painting the clamps that are attached to the tools at the same time, so they look homogeneous to the rest of the vehicle. And then it's just a matter of painting the tools. Now, there is some evidence that at times camouflage was painted right over the tools. Michael Reese of the Hamilcar Barkus channel posted some photographic evidence that was very interesting, because there was a ghost outline of a shovel on the side of a tank where it had been, the camouflage had been sprayed over it, and then the shovel removed at some later point. So, you know, I'm not saying that's what you should do, but if you did do it, that's not necessarily incorrect. And it could potentially save you some headaches in painting. But just a little bit of trivia. Interesting little tidbit for you there. So let's do this here axe. Like thusly. Then we have this crowbar, goes here. That's part C39, and I carefully cleaned up all the seams and remaining remnants of sprue gate, so it should all look good when painted. We got that. Then we have the sledgehammer. Goes here. Need a little bit more cleanup right here. Sprue gate was attached to this little clamp, so there's a little bit left, so I need to trim that off. Like that, and then I'm going to hit it just ever so lightly my sanding stick. Very good. And that goes here. If you have any little fuzzies left on the part after, you know, cleaning it up, scraping it, whatever you did, this will make those disappear. So this part here goes here. Like that. And then lastly but not leastly, oh no, got a couple more parts. Got this one here. Now this is kind of cool because you got a long tab and a short tab. Long slot, short slot. So it's kind of hard to mess it up. But I did notice just now some remnants of ejector pin. Ejector pins right there, so I'm gonna smooth that out because I don't want it to be uneven. All right, so then this goes here and there. I'm gonna hit this one more time with the sander just in case, because I don't want that mold parting seam line on there. So I think that's good. All right, so let's put that there, hold it in place. Like that. And then last part here on this first. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to use my thicker cement and try and hold on to the part. Like that. Now I can move on to this portion, start cutting off all these parts. For these little small latchety hook things, they actually fit in place pretty well. Already got one there, I haven't glued it yet, but they fit right in between those little ears there. So that's kind of cool. However, I need to clean this one up. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Amateur tip of the day. If you have a little small flat piece like this to clean up, if you have something like some small pliers with no teeth in them or photo etch bending tool, you can grasp it firmly like this and use your blade or sander, your own, whatever preferred method you have, and clean that up, because trying to hold them in your fingers can be kind of tough. So there you go. Oh, I need to do that one too. I thought I'd already done them. That just goes to show to never be too careful. Double check your work. All right, that's better. Get this. Tweezers. Put it in place like that. Make sure it is lined up like that. Go ahead and put some cement on these two parts. Like that. And that. Get this last one. It goes the opposite direction. Like that. Bingo. Okay. Then we can do, I did the same thing on the cleaning rods for the other side, and they mount the same. Now, oddly enough, they're parts 16 and 17. Oh, I see. Yeah, that does make a difference. I was like, it's kind of weird, the exact items, but one has an indented hole there and one has a protruding hole. So I'm thinking there might be a clamp or something that goes across the top. But anyway, that goes there and there. Glue it down just like we did on this side. Like that. Now the jack block goes right here. Like that. And I have to say that one thing that's pretty cool about this here jack block is it's got some pretty nice wood grain detail on it, so it's gonna, that'll weather nicely. Cement on all four corners. Kaboom. And then, lastly but not leastly, we got the shovel. Goes right here. Cement there and there. Make sure it's pressed into place. Kaboomly. And the last part on this step is cut out the rest of these parts. Starting with the extinguisher A17, and then A12, which is the antenna mast base. Then C28, B2, and two B11s. On this section here, I'm getting ready to glue everything on, and I somehow lost one of these. Zoom in a little bit, which is one of the brackets for this. So as you can see here, I've already started scratch building one. So what I did is I just glued a couple of posts of similar size to this side and this side. This side and this side. And what I'll do is I'll lay the part in place, and then using this small piece of photo etch, I will lay that across the top as the strap, and then using an extra wing nut, I'll glue that on. So let's do that real quick before I move on to the other stuff. So let's put this on here first. You know what? There's a little bit of a burr on here. Man, that thing. There we go. Put this on first, like that. Then I'll go ahead and glue this on. If I don't launch it off into oblivion, and I sure don't want to have to make 2 of these. That would make me sad. So I'll put a little bit of cement like that and that. Put that in place. Make sure it is aligned properly. Put a little bit more cement on there. And there. Okay, so now let's see, let's get some super glue. And generally when I use super glue, I put a little bit in one of these here. I'm using the gel on here because I want to give myself a second or two to actually position it. And then get one of my high-end super glue applicators. Here. And I'm going to put a little dot of super glue on the top of both of these posts here. Like that. And then take this little piece of brass, set it on top like that. And once I paint it, you'll never know the difference. So let me get, and the larger part is a toe clevis from some other kit, an extra that I had. So let's see, let's get one of these here. Hopefully these are extras, but if they're not, I've got extras elsewhere, so carefully cut that off. Get another little dot of, let me get a fresh bit of super glue out here. Like that. And put it right there like that. Then make a valiant effort to pick up this wing nut with tweezers. And boom, just like that. All right, so let that dry. Go ahead and put these other parts on. The wire cutter goes a little burr right there too. Goes here. A little bit of cement there and there. Okay, that's giving me problems. What the tarnish is the deal there? It's like the larger hole, this square hole's like too small or something. Due to the molding limitations, that rectangular hole for the front bracket here was kind of tapered. So the very bottom part would go in, but the upper part wouldn't. No problem, fixed. Then the fire extinguisher goes back here and like thusly. And then last but not least, for step 8, we've got the antenna base. It's almost as if some of the holes are a little bit small. They're really snug. It's all right though. Okay, so glue that on there like that. And that will finish step 8. On to step 9. Which is more hole stuff. First thing I will do is assemble the hatches. Yeah, the hatches. And for that I need A5, B14, B28. And I really don't think I'm going to actually assemble the hinges, because I'm not going to yeah, I'm not going to have them open, so I think I'm just going to do the periscope and the hatch itself, and then the little periscope guard. So let me get A5. We'll do that side first. A5. B14 and B23. B14 and B23. Like that. Get those cleaned up. Okay, all of this is done. Everything is done in this part of part 9 except for the photo etch, and that's what I'm going to do next. Now I've already started on one, so let me show you real quick what I do with photo etch. Now I have a video from back in my early days of the YouTube thing showing how I dealt with photo etch. Changed dramatically, at least in the way that I cut it off the fret and all that kind of stuff. Back then I used a tile, I used a certain kind of blade, and it was dumb, because this is the way I do it now. Right on my cutting mat, I've got a knife that I've got marked PE, which just means it's a blade that I don't care about. I just get it right up against the part and cut it. Now part of it has to do with the fact that this is a little bit thicker photo etch than some, and I think photo etch has gotten a little bit better for the most part, in that these connection points between the part and the fret, they're a lot thinner and a lot narrower, so there's less chance of deforming your part and so on. So I just do that. Get it cut off, good to go. Then I take my PE bender, but you can use anything flat, you know, if you got some pliers that have smooth jaws on them or whatever. And I just put them in place here, and I get them just the edge is sticking out. Squeeze it good, and then I just get some sanding stick that I'm not too concerned about, and I just run it on that little burr left over from cutting it off the sprue, or the fret. Okay? How come I don't use a file? It's not necessary. It's so fine and so small, and I've cut it close enough that this will smooth it out a lot quicker with less likelihood of it catching and possibly bending the part. And I just go all the way around, and the nice thing is you can feel the rough edge with your fingers. Your fingerprints will kind of grab on them, unless you're some kind of international high-end criminal that have had your fingerprints removed. Might still be able to feel it, but I'm not sure. And just go all the way around. Alright, and to glue them on, I simply do this. Now, here's something to take note of with photo etch. Now, in this case, it only goes on here one way. Although, you could flip it over like that and put it on there. So I'm doing it by the number. But there's generally a difference. For example, on the back, you can see it's very smooth. Whereas on the top, it's textured to make it look like interwoven heavy wire strands to create the mesh. Okay, so that is something to keep in mind. Now, the way I do this, on something like this, I'm holding one end in place. I've got some super glue in here, using this little super glue applicator, or whatever kind of applicator you use. And then I'm just going to touch it under the edge like that. Wipe that little bit off the top. Get a little bit like that, and then I'm going to push it down in place and hold it and let it set. And once that side is set, and this is something I don't think it's really necessary, but it's what I do. I'll take a lighter and burn off any remaining CA from the previous application, just to make sure it's nice and clear. And then I'll do the same thing here. Push it down, hold it while it dries, and voila, you have some nice screens on there. And one of the nice things about these particular screens is they're pretty much sitting flat right on top of these grills. So when I paint it, it's going to paint both parts. So I don't have to worry about pre-painting what's underneath here. If you have like a cavity, sometimes it helps to do it that way, but not necessary here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these off and get those put in place and come back, and we'll move on to the second part of step 9. Next up are the tow ropes. And what I'm going to do with those is I'm going to cut those off, and I'm going to see if the detail is good enough and I'm able to clean them up enough to use them on the kit and have it look right. If not, I'll have to go to a plan B. Alright, so I really didn't realize it until later, but this cable was broken on the sprue, and I'm not going to try and glue it together and have it look right and everything else, so I am going to use some of my Eureka tow cables. And the one I am using is the 0.75 millimeter. It's the closest. And I determined that by using my caliper to measure this one, and it's pretty close. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this broken one here. I am going to cut the cables off as flat as possible, like this. I'm committed now. And like this. And then I'm going to clean the sprue gate part up here. And after that, I used my sanding stick to make sure it was really flat. Then used the tip of my number 11 blade here to start a pilot hole in both of them. Then I chose what I hope is the appropriate size bit, and I'm going to very carefully drill that out because it really needs to be centered, because I want to drill far enough in that it doesn't develop, you know, like a weird kink coming out. You know, I want it to look like it's, you know, the cable's inside and looped. And it looks like, oh yes, I got it centered. And I chose the right size bit, I believe. So I'm going to drill these out. Using the good cable as a template, I roughly figured out the length that I'm going to need for the cable, and then taking into consideration how far it goes into the eye or the loop, whatever you want to call it, I have a good idea of what I need to do. So I'm going to straighten this one out, I'm going to cut another one, and then come back and assemble one. Voila! Two nicely fabricated cables that can now be mounted on the vehicle. What I'll do is I am going to work my way down across the kit to get it shaped properly, make sure there's no kinks in the cable itself. But I gotta say, I'm really stoked with this, and it's a good way to make a cable. And a cable that's gonna look decent. So it's got a curve around like this, and it's got to be a gentle curve, can't be a big old fat kink or anything weird like that. So I don't want to bore you with watching while I do all this, so I'm going to do this off camera, and we'll come back and take a look at how it turned out. Now I'm going to start, I've got the eyes glued into place, so now I'm going to start working everything else into place. So I'm going to first I'm going to cut off the B18s, which are the straps or bars, whatever you want to call it, that goes across to hold the cleaning rods and the cable into place. So there's B18, and I need 4 of those. So those are these. And 4 B20s, which are these, and these are for the actual loops, eyes, whatever you want to call them. So I need 4 of those. And last, 4 B17s, whoa, B17s, which is the part that holds the cable in these clamps back here. Now these are glued in place, and it's not really exciting and not much to watch, but what I did is I taped the cables in place to hold them where they're supposed to be, and carefully held them in place, and I glued them actually on top of the rods here, because that's where the greatest contact point is. And next I want to do these ones for the front of the cables there, so I need to clean these up. Now these little pieces, whoops, I almost put it the wrong way. They fit. I really like the way they did these parts for the clamps, because they're not just a molded on clamp or something weird like that. They actually the wing nuts have a nice long stem on them, so they fit down through the slot here and into this hole here like it's really, you know, supposed to be there. So I'm really digging the way they did this. I've never seen it. It may be common. I've never seen it done like this for these. So I just have to say that I really like it. And it just adds a little element of realism and authenticity. And the detail on these things is really good too. You just can't see it on camera, but, and you know, I haven't built, like I said at the very get-go, I haven't built a 1/35th scale Tiger tank since the 80s. So, you know, this could be just like commonplace, but I haven't built one, so I can't say, oh yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. So let me glue these on. And with these, same thing, use a little bit of tape to get it in place. And fortunately they have like little ultra tiny locating pins. Now something to keep in mind is one side is a hole, one side is kind of U-shaped. The U-shaped thing matches the U-shaped thing here. So you want to make sure you get it oriented the right way, or orientated, however you say it. That'll make it easier to put the wing nut in it. So I'll do the same thing on this side. And then B32, which are these wing nuts with the longer stems, those need to go on these back here. So I've already got 2 of them in place. I'm going to put 2 more, and they're very, very tiny, so it is necessary to be very careful. Let's take them like this. The nice thing is they fit in place really nicely like that. They just slot right in there. Stand them up. A little dab of cement. Make sure it's upright. And then do the other one. So up to this point, I have to say that I am quite impressed with the engineering of this kit. It has fit together great. I'm gonna say, and this may get a lot of what, but compared to other kit manufacturers, I say it most closely resembles Tamiya in the fit and engineering so far. All right, so I still need to do the wing nuts, B15. I need 1, 2, 3, 4 of those for these clamps. You've seen how I've done it, so I'm not going to do the other ones on camera. And once I get those glued in place, I'll come back. And that is that. All the wing nuts are in place on both of these, these, and on those. So that officially finishes part 9, or step 9, I should say. And step 10, which is the ones for the back. I've already done those. So I've done them all and ready to move on. So that's step 10. So I'm ready to move on to step number 11. So that, I think, will be it for part 6 of the Trumpeter 1/35 scale Tiger 1 late version. So as always, if you have any hints, tips, concerns, any experience with this kit, anything you want to talk about, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So until next time, when we come back for part number 7, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I will see you all later.